we couldn't do what we do without great partners, like Hot Seat, and CDL Life and, all the partners that are here.
It's about the driver's ride.
Yeah, absolutely.
The community that we live for.
You can tell right off the bat if something's authentic or not. That's going to show. But if you force it, people can smell that a mile away.
Thank you for tuning in to Cents Per Mile, live from Vegas. I'm your host, Charles Gracie.
And I'm your co-host, Paul Gibson. Before we get started, don't forget, just like always, if you could, like, subscribe, rate wherever you listen or watch your podcasts. But yeah, here we are, part 2, still at the Tenstreet User Conference in Vegas, giving you a little behind-the-scenes look and kind of talking about, what's going on.
If you're not here, we wanted to give you a how the sausage is made, as you said on day one, and whether you're a carrier that couldn't attend for a various reason, or you're a driver that's wondering what's going on behind the scenes to make all this magic happen and reach out to you to get you that perfect job, this is a beneficial opportunity to see what goes into this. So I think we hop into it and go out there and see what they're dropping today.
All right.
When we're giving you a behind-the-scenes look, there's no better person to have this discussion than Becky with Trish Grove's agency. How you doing today, Becky?
I'm doing awesome. Thanks for having me on your show. This is exciting.
Is it? I mean, what's more exciting, being in Vegas or being on the show?
Truthfully, this. I'm super pumped about this. I've been looking forward to it.
That was a good answer, especially in our presence.
I'm sucking up from the get-go.
Yep, and this is being on the show is one of the only things you don't have to pay for in Vegas. So that's kind of nice.
You can't even walk through the casino without some money falling out of your pocket.
Yep.
You do actually have to pay me before we're done. So
Nobody told me that ahead of time.
you know now.
Well, neither of those people taking pictures with you out on the strip. Like, oh, you want your phone back? Like, that's got to be $20.
So yesterday we tried to ask some random trucking questions on the strip to people, and we thought it seemed like a great way to see what their knowledge was based on what actually is the knowledge.
I can only imagine what you got.
Like, oh, yeah. I don't think you could, because we couldn't either. We were like, this is a great idea. And then we realized, nobody wanted to talk to us because they all thought it was a hustle. Yeah. And then Josh was like, there's literally ladies with their butts hanging out. I don't know why you guys think someone's going to talk to you. They don't even talk to them.
Yeah, you're not that good looking.
Oh.
I mean, I'm not.
You went out there during the day. At night, it would have been a different story.
Oh, dude, I don't think I would have.
Yeah.
I would have had, somebody would have probably been on so many drugs they tried to eat the microphone.
Probably.
So, Becky, we're here. We're trying to give everyone a behind-the-scenes look of all the planning and the organization and the processes that trucking has in place to attract talent into those trucks that they're trying to fill. With you guys working over at the agency, that gives you a lot of insight, from my experience at least. And I'd like to ask you a question. So, when carriers are looking for a solution, if that solution is possibly an agency, what's the benefits of an agency on the carrier's behalf trying to attract driver talent in today's competitive market?
Well, the industry changes all the time. And I try to put myself in the director of recruiting position. There are so many fires that they're normally putting out day to day. You're managing people. You're having to be in meetings with other directors of your company. Anything can be happening from the day to day. What our experience is, and I've been doing this since 2004, so I've seen ebbs and flows in this industry like a lot of our colleagues have as well. But what I pride myself on is truly being part of the team, even though I'm not an employee of the team. So I like to get to know the company itself, really understand the inner workings, what works for the recruiting department, even their safety departments, their operations. You've got to understand the full picture of a carrier and then be able to provide your expertise, your knowledge base to help them in whatever that may be. So it's not just, hey, let me place an ad for you. That has gone to the wayside since we stopped advertising in newspapers. It's not that easy anymore. You really have to put some thought into what makes the most sense for this carrier, this situation, and being able to bring that knowledge base to the table is something that a director or even a marketing department can say, hey, with one phone call, I can call Becky and say that I need XYZ figured out and then move on with their day and not have to worry about it because they know I'm going to take care of it. And I really pride myself on being able to do that. And then honestly, been doing a really good job.
So if you were to advise a driver on the best place in this market to look to have as many job offers as possible that would benefit them, where would you tell them to look at?
They're in the best position they've probably ever been in terms of having options. The tides have turned from, drivers being disposable almost back in the 80s to nowadays, if you're a good driver with a really good safety record, a really good work record, you really have some great options available to you. So I would say to a driver, be a consumer just like anybody else is. If I want to buy myself a new car or, buy a new pair of shoes, what are you going to do? You're going to go to social media, probably first and foremost. That's what I do. And I want to learn about that company. So I check that out. I see what conversations are being said, pictures being posted, kind of get a sense for what that company looks like. And then I'm going to go on the internet and I'm going to do some searches. There are a plethora of options of where you can go and find information about all kinds of carriers.
With a tight market like this, right? With this not a completely unprecedented situation, but like the situation we're in with the freight market, being, working at an agency, I make, videos for trucking companies. And one thing that I always strive for is authenticity. And I like how you talked about you go and you fact find about the company. And so I would say maybe for carriers, I've found in my experience that a lot of carriers want to be perceived a certain way, but the way they want to be perceived is not the way they are. It's not necessarily always a bad thing. It's just they might want to be like the company on the other side of town or something like that. What would you say for carriers? So it's a two-part question. For carriers, how important is that authenticity, especially in like regards to retention and that kind of thing? But then secondly, do you have any good tips to help drivers kind of see through the companies who might not be being as authentic?
Oh, yeah. So I don't think you can hide who you are. A lot of times if you go on social media, I think that's one of the best platforms to really see kind of off the cuff stuff, right? So I love when a carrier can just do little clips of their driver appreciation events, or even just, hey, I walked out and into the lot today and ran into, Danny the driver and just had a little chat with him. That's very authentic. And I think, again, as a consumer's point of view, you can tell right off the bat if something's authentic or not. It's not forced. And I think just showing up that day-to-day within the culture of your company, be honest with yourself. If your culture is a positive one and that is reinforced within onboarding a driver and through orientation and a driver's working experience with you, that's going to show. But if you force it, people can smell that a mile away. So just do your due diligence, showcase the positives. Everybody's got positives, but you can't force it because that's going to be a turnoff for sure.
All right. So here's a follow-up question. Best practices for carriers. In your professional opinion, do you think drivers care about posts about like someone winning an award in the office or an office employees having lunch or something like that? Do you think when you put that out on social media, like what kind of message do you think that actually sends the drivers who are coming to research your company?
I think it does really well to show that the company cares about its employees and drivers if you're recognizing everybody. But if it's just self-promotion of your employees all the time and you're not really addressing your drivers on those platforms, then I think I think you missed the mark.
If someone wanted to reach out to you guys, what's the best way to find you?
My email is really easy to remember. It's becky@trishgrovesagency.com. You can also look up me on LinkedIn, or Trish is my business partner and who the agency's name is after Trish Groves, and she is Trish at Groves Agency. Again, both of us can be found on LinkedIn.
We have Jeremy May from Ramsey Media. Jeremy, welcome to Cents Per Mile.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
It's excited to have you. You've made some switches recently. You want to tell us a little bit about what drove you to leave the carrier side to go to the vendor side at Ramsey Media?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I had a drive to make the change, but I did get a phone call that initiated it, So
you got drafted.
I did, yeah. I'll tell you a little bit about the change. I think, it was hard. It was an emotional thing. I worked with some folks for 15 years at a team that, we moved mountains together, and so it was hard to leave. I deeply cared about them, and those tears come easy when you have that care. I know you guys know that because y'all are real,
Did the same thing.
Yeah, it was hard. That was challenging, to just tell them, I was going to be accepting, some new challenges. But, the other side of that coin was that there was opportunities, in the industry to work with Ramsey. And, I'm able to do what I love every day, helping our clients, and that is just it's a very rewarding thing that I've been able to take in that change.
Yeah, I mean, you and I, we've had some awesome conversations. And the one thing I'll say in our conversations is how genuine those conversations are. You genuinely believe and act upon what you say in every regard that in the encounter we've had.
Yeah.
So making that switch, I mean, knowing that that's how our relationship's been built, making that switch, I'm guessing you had to feel that when they called you. I mean, you obviously didn't just say, "Oh, I don't believe anything this person's saying. I'm going over here." No, you.
Yeah, no, it was hard. I mean, I was open to the conversation. I mean, at the end of the day, there was no harm, no foul there. But it was hard. I know at one point, Garrett's who reached out to me, so Garrett Ramsey, and a great guy. And we had conversations, and I think there was a point where they made an offer, and we kept that conversation going, because I still had a lot of questions, because it was.
No, not you. No.
Yeah. I don't blame that at all. I scheduled an unscheduled interview again. But, that was the beginning of our relationship.
No.
We didn't have a relationship prior to that. And so relationships matter, that you just do in every aspect,
That's been a common thread discussion for us. So, you're now at Ramsey. What value, with your experience coming from the carrier side, do you think you bring to the table for Ramsey Media and their commitment to their clients?
Yeah, a fair question. Well, I think first I should state, Ramsey's been around for 20 years, and they've had a commitment to client service and retention for long before me. So I don't want to say that I've given anything there. They were well established in that space. But I think that the role that I've filled that was a new position, that role allowed us to take those long-term relationships and just have deeper, more strategic conversations. And so I think that was very additive to what they've been known for 20 years. And so I think there was a good complementary role there with just my experience and my skill set, and I think those two married together, what it actually, what it equates to, I think, is that the contacts that we work within those businesses, they've brought us in to be a part of their team, so we really consider ourselves an embedded function of their team. And I think that commitment to service, what it's ultimately done is put us in a position to help them have job stability and career advancement within their fleets, And if that latter part's not true, if they're not having that stability and advancement, then I would tell you that I've personally failed those individuals, and I've certainly let Ramsey Media Works down.
If you were to advise a carrier right now, whether in this market they should be pulling their budget, holding their budget, increasing their budget, what would be your number one piece of advice so they can make the right decision?
Yeah. Well, I think using the word advising, kind of a lowball question for me, because that's a lot of what I do, right? I mean, it's that strategic, approach. So I think a lot of times the context of budget cuts, it's a very surface level conversation. If we're cutting budget, sometimes I would consider it very reactive. And so I'm listening when those questions are coming to me from an actual carrier. But, from our clients, the ones that we've been working with, we have those relationships, that's not often the question, because really what you're really trying to understand is what's their long-term goal, what's their strategies, right? And so, yes, the pricing in the freight market's soft. There's still a lot of freight moving, but the rates are certainly down, and that's revenue on clients.
Down.
Absolutely.
Down.
But
we're in a new barrel.
We are, but I think that's where, my job, the very nature of my job's not to be worried about, today. It's making sure that, in a year and 2 years down the road that we're in a good position. And I'm not saying we Ramsey, I'm talking about our clients. We're in that with them, and they have those goals. And so while trucking is cyclical, we all know that, but if
it's not, we got way bigger problems.
But I think, the question I would have to ask to answer that for any one person, because there's not a one size fits all.
No.
Is what are your, are you content where you're at right now? Do you have a need? Do you, are you looking to, are you looking to grow your fleet? Or, how's your brand? What's your culture look like? There's places that they can still invest. It may not be via us, but again, we're looking at what's their long-term plan. And so, this is the opportunity when it's not chaos, right? There was the COVID, chaos kicked in. And so I think, people maybe, let some things creep into their operations, or they were just kind of drinking from a fire hose. And so this is the time, that because it's cyclical, just call this the eye of the storm, right? I mean, there's another rise coming. And I think what we've got to do is make sure that when it comes, we're at the front, right? So are our recruiters trained? Do we have video assets that we can use to build our brand? Those are things that we can be doing right now because
it's true.
Well, and because it's slow, right? So, and I'm not picking on here, but right, I mean, if they're spending less, then the supply and demand's off on the video production side, and so you're able to maybe do a little bit more work or have a little bit more time to even put a higher quality video together. And so, and when those assets are ready, when those recruiters have been at a Tenstreet to be trained and learning tools and learning efficiencies, that fleet's in a better position.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the budget, that's a small piece of it. Let's make sure that our customers are prepared to win, because when this thing ticks up, I want to be the front horse.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I think there's a lot to be said about that too, because a lot of people, they're like, oh, it's down or trucks are full. The same thing like with advertising, for drivers, because there's so many companies out there, right? There's a million companies, and drivers get bothered by all of them all of the time, whether they want to or not. So, but at the same time, like there is a lot to be said about that, about being front of mind when things do pick up. So if your trucks are full, or it's cheaper to not run trucks because of how low freight is right now, it's better to at least just reinvest to become front of mind, whether, not even necessarily video, or improving your recruiters.
Well, and I think that, in our world, inside the walls of Rams Media Works, when somebody says our fleet's full, that's a celebratory moment.
Yep.
That is what
it should be.
That's what we were hired to do.
Your success is through their success, and that's the right way to do business. That's the beneficial way long term to look at a relationship with any client or any person in general, is how do I do something that's going to further them, and through their success, we are successful.
It's about the drivers, right?
Yeah,
They're
absolutely.
the community that we live for, and we go to work hard every day to make sure that they're finding the right carriers and right jobs and careers, so that they can have those relationships with their families, just like we're afforded. So,
if someone wanted to reach out to Ramsey Media or yourself, what would be the way they would be able to do this?
Man, well, obviously they know you guys and ping it out, but I mean, I'm on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest way. I mean, I'd be glad to share my personal email and phone number and all those things, but I would say let's connect, because it's about the community,
Yeah.
And
I couldn't think of a better person to come and talk some more about Tenstreet than Marilyn.
Well, hello. Thank you guys for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad you came on the show.
There's been a lot of information. I had a couple of segments where I was sitting in there and I heard a lot of clapping where you guys weren't even done talking. I mean, there was some exciting stuff happening. The Easter eggs dropped all along.
Yeah, it's really exciting because we really do listen to clients, and we listen to prospects, and we listen to partners. And so every year when we come here, my session ran over just now on accidents because we had so many questions and so much feedback, which is what we want, because we go away from there and we develop that product, or we change products, or we make additions, and it comes from our clients and our partners telling us this is what we need to be better and to use the system more effectively.
So one of the things I find as a benefit, because I've been on the driver's side, I've been on the carrier side, and now I'm on the vendor side, is the pulse. And with Pulse, it's nice to be able to communicate. It gives you another avenue to communicate, another pathway, if you will. But sometimes, like everything else, people might turn it off for various reasons, or they turn it off altogether and then forget how to turn it on. So one of the more common things I hear carriers say is, how do we encourage people to activate Pulse? How do we encourage them to turn it back on? And I imagine that you have this conversation pretty frequently. So if you were advising a carrier on the best way to utilize Pulse and promote it to be an efficient tool, what would that be?
So just like we said, we want to help a carrier manage the life cycle of a driver. We want to help a driver manage the life cycle of their career through Driver Pulse. And so we have also worked really hard to create things in app that bring the driver back there organically in a more frequent manner. But for carriers specifically, I think the first thing is, are you using Driver Pulse in your recruiting process? And so when you have that driver on the phone and they're captive because they're applying to your, that's the most captive you're ever going to have them probably, right? Is when they call you and they want to come to work for you.
And even then, you definitely don't actually have
Yeah. So to say to the driver, do you have Driver Pulse on your phone? And if they don't, okay, we'll go download Driver Pulse. And it is so simple, right?
Yeah.
It is so simple. They just go into the App Store or Google. I I don't speak Google.
Google Play.
Yeah, Google Play.
Well, most
With
people,
everyone hating on it.
because I only know 2 people with Android phones, and it's you and Kevin.
I mean, yeah.
But that being said, though, I think because one thing that comes up a lot on this, on the show, that it just, regardless of what we talk about, like a lot of trucking, regardless of what side or where you're at in the industry, is communication is the biggest thing. And, because I did spend time as a recruiter, and we definitely use Tenstreet. And then just watching it grow. And I remember, because I was still in recruiting when, like, pulse messages started and that kind of thing. And so watching that grow and the level of communication you have, and then seeing that now it's expanding past just the recruiting process, because that's what companies need.
Yeah.
That's where the ball always gets dropped, is communication. And so it's like to have that actually cover that entire, like, every area. Is amazing.
And starting in the beginning, because I think you can only have so many calls to actions for drivers. They need to know where to go to get information.
Well, because they're getting them nonstop all the time.
Right, nonstop all the time, and they're trying to do their job, which is to pick up and deliver freight, on time and damage free. And so, starting in the recruiting process, I think, really sets the stage to say this is where you're going to go for your communication. So whenever you need to send me something in the hiring process, if you need to send me your CDL, take a picture of that, upload it through Pulse, right, and send out pre-hire, pre-orientation stuff, send out a video, send out some documents, send something to continue to engage that driver through Pulse.
Everything you guys are doing is massively impactful to the industry, which needs some impact in a lot of places. And just the motivation that you guys have behind it, the culture, I think it's huge. So I'm super grateful for you guys throwing this awesome conference, and super grateful for having us here.
Yeah, well, we're happy that you're here. We couldn't do what we do without great partners, like Hot Seat, and CDL Life, and, all the partners that are here. So we're excited for you guys to be here and see what we're doing, because it takes a village, right? We're all here, we're all here in this industry to make it better for drivers. And so this is a really great representation of that this week, to have all of these different factors of our industry coming together.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to the rest of today and what you guys have. I'm sure this isn't the last hoorah.
We're going to keep on going until 5 o'clock.
All right. Well, hey, thank you again, and we'll wrap it up there.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Yep. Thanks for coming on the show.
Well, we've had a great time. There's been a lot of information. The Tenstreet User Conference has been nothing but amazing. And the show, the guests we've had, the information they've shared, the experiences, it's been all big win, unlike me at the craps table.
Facts. But I'll tell you what, man, it's been fun. Vegas is, in fact, a tourist trap, just like I talked about at the very beginning. It's been proven all week. But that being said, I'm exhausted. It's been a long trip, and we got a plane to catch.
Thank you for tuning in to Cents Per Mile for the Tenstreet User Conference in Vegas. I'm your host, Charles Gracie.
And I'm your co-host, Paul Gibson. See you next time.